All right, keep eating. I'm just gonna roll through some announcements. It's been a couple of months really since we've been together, so we got a few of them. First up, just on the thinking about the September calendar, as you all know, we switched the calendar around a little bit, and so we're doing this meeting the first Tuesday of every month, with some extra service and social events kind of sprinkled in between. So this month, it's next Monday is the upcoming service project at Kids Food Basket. I think it's noon to 2. Is that right, Kelly?
Yes.
Anything else you want to say about it, or anything I should say? And text or email Kelly, if you're able to make it. That's noon to 2. 2 weeks from today is a social gathering down the road at New Holland Brewery. That's from 4 to 6 p.m. I know Rob had kind of sent out a note to RSVP to him if you know you're able to make it. The club's gonna pay for some snacks, and then your beverages are on you. So that should be a nice time too. Hopefully see a lot of faces there. Kim or Ann, am I missing anything else on the social event? Kind of well, it was Rob, but
He's gonna be there.
He's gonna be there. He's not here today.
Yeah.
Okay. Continuing in chronological order, October 2nd is the projects night, the district-wide projects night at Rockford Sportsman's Club. That's where you can go, and it's kind of a version of speed dating, if you will, where you can kind of go booth to booth for a couple minutes and learn about the different projects going on in the area. Info in the newsletter on that. The next lunch meeting, Tuesday, October 7th here. And then thinking about a couple other announcements, in case anybody's out of habit or has forgotten what is new. The parking pass stickers are over there as you first walk in. You put that on the ticket and it lets you out, or could let you out of the gate, but no cost. And hopefully we don't have any trains blocking our way this day. Also pins. I know it was kind of brought up, but there are pins for sale. If anybody's missing a pin and wants to avoid a fine and pay for a pin instead, Cheryl's got those, and they're usually always here. They tend to be in the box normally. I also know there was some interest in getting some more Lions Club clothing. If anybody wants one-off orders, you can go to the Lions Club website, lionsclub.org. And then if there's enough interest in some sort of local order, perhaps we could put together a micro site or something like that again. Other dates. I know, maybe I'll just turn it over to Ann on the holiday shopping. I think I heard the holiday shopping and the holiday social are the same day. Is that correct? No, okay. Okay, I'll let Ann go first and then Kim. Okay. Go ahead on the holiday shopping, Ann.
Shopping is going to be December 6th, and I have passed around. And there's only one person in this room who is not participated ever in the holiday. That's you. So everyone who has, I think, has really enjoyed it. We're planning on 50 children. So we need volunteers, and we only have 2 meetings, so we get all of this together. So please sign up. We've had a great response in the past, and we need your volunteerism for us to keep, being able to work with the kids who come, the visually impaired, as well as the kids from the base camp out of Center City. Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Number 6 and the sign sheet's going around.
December 6th, we were supposed to have our holiday party at Blyfield, but they double booked the member party for that night. So we are now the 13th, following Saturday the 13th, Blyfield Country Club for the holiday party.
Any other announcements or items that I'm missing or that anybody else has? Good, Gary.
Oh, yes, tell me, is there any future other service projects coming up besides Monday?
We're gonna try to just rotate, between some Meals on Wheels, and I know ABBI needed some help, Kids Food Basket again, Village Waters. I don't have a date set up for the next one yet.
More info to follow. Anything else? Anybody else? All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Ed, our tail twister for the day.
Yeah, first question, how much are the bids? Okay, maybe we should make the fine $5. That way you automatically buy a new one. So I'm here to take if anybody wants to admit they don't have a pin on, just raise your hand. It's only $1 today, but.
I think you got one right there.
That's all. Yeah, it's fine. Well, that's only for today. I'm gonna make sure Tim knows, or Jamie knows about that for future. Make sure Jamie knows. Okay, any happy thoughts? I have a $5 happy thought. I just had a great trip out on the east coast, and I'm home safe, and so there's my happy thought. Kelly?
Thad and I were able to go with Pierce to Europe, to Paris and to Spain, for 16 days, through the school, so had a great trip there, yeah.
Right.
Okay, anybody else happy thoughts? Go ahead, you're first.
I had a new granddaughter about 2 months ago.
Congratulations.
And we just had a wonderful summer, so.
There you go. Another one.
For you, my wife Allison and I celebrated our 10-year wedding.
My happy buck is I'm gonna have Kim tell us what he's doing, in another 10 days. Kim, would you stand up? That's my happy buck.
A week from Saturday, I fly to Spain to walk the El Camino Trail. I'm only walking the first 200 miles.
In one day?
September, on the first day. And then I'll go back in April and finish the other 300 miles. So
What is this trail?
it's a pilgrim, they call it a pilgrimage to St. John's. There's about 12 different trails that all converge on Compostela de San Diego, which is the church where St. James was buried. And so I'm starting in France and Pierre de Paul Saint, I can't speak French or any of that. But starting in France, and the first day is I have to cross the Pyrenees Mountains.
Are you going with anybody that you know?
No, all by myself, all my friends, all of them.
You have a backpack? You wear a
Backpack, yeah.
backpack?
And it's a trail, and about every 3 to 8 kilometers is a town you're walking through. And it's a very well-defined trail. Over 400,000 people walk this every year.
There'll be lots of people.
Make sure you say Buen Camino.
Buen Camino, every time you see somebody, you say Buen Camino. Yeah, but, and just go, and they've got all the services, stay in alberges, which are basically hostels, where you can sleep with anywhere from 6 to 100 of your closest friends. And more, that's way. Yeah. So.
How long do you anticipate this?
Pardon?
How long do you take being
On the 200, I'll do it in less than 2 weeks. I'm gonna be doing 15 miles a day. That's the plan. So I've booked it out, the little, got my reservations. Second time when I do it, I may go back without any reservations, and that's where you just show up. You say, do you have a room? I don't know if I'm ready for that yet at 70 years old.
So my 22-year-old granddaughter is on her last 250 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail, which starts in Mexico and ends up in Canada, 2,650 miles. So she's halfway through Washington, and then my grandson lives in Seattle, so he's gonna meet her at the end and take her to the airport, cause she has to report for college in a few weeks. So- Hmm? Well, she started out with another gal and she was too slow, so she met up with a group. There was about, and that's what happens. You end up with like 10 or 12 people you travel with. And you get to know them just talking as you're on the
They
trip.
say after 1 or 2 days, you
Yeah.
have a family.
You'll have a whole family. And so anyway, it's been really interesting hearing the stories of my granddaughter, because she's a young lady, she's beautiful. And she's walking this trail. We don't want her doing it alone, but anyway, she's not. And that's the beautiful part about it. But she averages 40 miles a day. And she's walked, I mean, they had to, when they were in the desert, she had to hike at night because it was too dang hot. So it's anyway, but a lot of people along the trail, see these people all the time, so they let them sleep in their yards, they sometimes let them take showers, will sometimes feed them, it's just really kind of, but they basically camp too, so they gotta carry everything on their back. Anyway, it'll be a great experience, you'll have. Okay, young man.
Friday, we leave for Boston and, go aboard a cruise ship there and go up the, coast to, Bar Harbor, Kennebunkport, Halifax, Quebec City and Montreal.
Okay, nice weather.
Yeah.
We'll look at that. All right, anybody else? Wes, call. Okay, one more.
Good summer. The kids are both in school full-time and the doc came out yesterday, so we're feeling a little sore today, but pretty good.
All right. Okay. I think I give this to you.
Yep.
Okay.
Tyler, in front of you.
I've got one more. I don't know if everybody knows, but Scott Brady's wife, Mary, is not doing too well. He was diagnosed with cancer a few weeks ago. A little more aggressive than they thought. So please keep her your prayers.
Thanks for sharing with TV. Okay, I can't remember how this works. Raffle before the speaker or speaker first? If you wanna do the animal. Here.
Be a number to call out. All right, 426, actually 424-674. Winner is?
It's me.
Again?
Just $5, just.
So you know.
Yeah, and the white one's going in, there's quite a lot of red ones.
424-944.
944. You're still lucky.
I put it in there, but there's a lot of them in there.
This is it.
Would have been something.
You ready?
All right, and with that, I will invite Shelley to come up with our guest speaker.
Did he? He didn't put the red one back in.
Did he? No, I got it.
Super, everyone.
He did. Well, our next guest kind of bleeds green and he kind of bleeds Laker blue. There we are. He's multitasking because he's good. John Lehrer, Second University Carolinist. There we go, of Grand Valley State University. And Sixth University Caroliner of Michigan State University. But a Yale graduate. Royal Carillon School of Belgium. John's also laureate of 5 international competitions, and of course, this includes for the Queen Fabiola, fabulous, the NKV, and the Alexis Julian Barrault competition. That's 3 questions we can ask right there. He is a regular on the global stage, toured for the Canada Council for the Arts as a concert soloist on the North American Renaissance Festival circuit, musician, entertainer. So you're a Renaissance kind of guy. Once, though, a data scientist, cancer researcher, thank you, but now focusing on creating movements of beauty for busy university communities. And it's known that he advances this Carillon art, including the next generation. Don't go away yet. I give you the floor, John there.
All right, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. When you play a musical instrument that nobody has ever heard of, having an audience who's interested to learn about it is of course a pleasure. Well, it's a pleasure to be here as the new University Carolinist of Grand Valley. We have 2 carillon towers. How many people have heard the word carillon before, out of curiosity? How many people know that there's musical instruments in both Beckering Tower out front and Cook Tower on Allendale campus? Okay, so if you think back to elementary school, when you were in, say, a music class and you learned all the instruments of the orchestra, it is possible that they did not mention the carillon. So I'm going to give you a bit of a background on that to start. Carillon is a keyboard instrument. It is newer than the harpsichord, but older than the forte piano, which was the predecessor to the modern piano. So it's been around for about 500 years. It started from signaling bells in medieval European towns. After, feudalism sort of transitioned into more centralized monarchy, there were some areas where cities were granted some degree of self-governance. This happened for the most part in the Netherlands, Belgium, Northern France, the sort of Low Countries areas. These cities needed ways to communicate. If you have several hundred people all scattered within a mile radius, how do you let people know when it's time to start working, stop working, when you're allowed to light fires, when you're not, when there's an invading army? All of these things, bells were the answer. They built super tall towers. They put multi-ton cast bronze bells there. And that was the replacement for the radio, the cell phone, all of these things. So actually it started off as a very functional tool. At some point there were enough bells in a tower that somebody thought, hey, I wonder if I can play a tune on this. That was about 1480, we have the first report of that. And by 1520, the carillon had spread all throughout the Low Countries. Every little town had one. They were making music on market days, celebrations, that sort of thing. And because trade was enriching these areas, they began competing to see who could have the most beautiful bells, who could have the most bells, who could have the biggest bells. The 2 sources of pride for one of these cities are the quality of their schools and the quality of their bells. And if that sounds a little strange, consider that there was no mass media back then. There was no radio you could tune into to hear music. So this was in some ways changing the entire environment of the city for the better and adding a bit of joy to things. In terms of mechanics, it is something like a piano, something like an organ, something a bit different from both of them, but I do play with my hands and my feet, so it is a 4-appendage instrument. Both of our towers have 4 octaves of bells, fully chromatic, so you can imagine sort of the middle section of a piano. And for example, in the Beckering Tower, we have about 12 tons of cast bronze total between all of the units. There's your basic overview of the carillon. Hopefully that's helpful. There are fewer than 200 carillons in the US today. There are about 800 in the world. The majority of them are in that Low Countries area of Europe. How does one get started playing carillon? I started in college. There was a big Gothic tower in the middle of campus with music coming out of it. I like high places, I like secret places, and I like music, so it seemed like a very natural possibility there. I kept playing afterwards, did some national exams, did some competitions, studied at the Royal Carillon School of Belgium. I'm sure you've all heard of it. Very famous institution up with Cambridge and all those. But it is the oldest carillon school in the world, and so I got to live overseas and have that sort of experience. Check my notes. things I can tell you. In addition to this being the original mass musical media, most of you are probably familiar with the idea of a player piano, yes? So the player piano came about, of course, after the piano. With the carillon, it's quite the reverse. It was originally used for automatic play, and there would be a giant cast iron or cast steel drum that would rotate. It had pegs in it, and the pegs would activate different bells via a lever. The pegs could be moved around to change melodies. This is an invention from the 8th century in Baghdad that was originally used to control a flute, and allowed to be played without a human. It is the earliest example we have of a programmable machine. So, if you're ever on your computer, know that it started. One thing I would like to touch on, this might get a little nerdy, so bear with me, but I think it's of some relevance, especially to the crowd here. If I were to take a sine wave generator, basically just a synthesizer that creates a musical pitch, I tell it to vibrate at 440 hertz. You would hear a very singular tone that would sound like an A on the piano. And if I analyze that with a spectrograph, you just see one big spike representing that there is a frequency at 440 hertz. It works very differently with a musical instrument. If I were to play a note on a trumpet, you would see multiple spikes on the spectrograph. There are actually many frequencies that make up the sound of a note, and that's why a trumpet or a clarinet can play the same note, and they will sound different. We can represent the timbre with the ratios of those, what we'll call overtones. Now, you don't have to understand too much about overtones to play any of those instruments, because if you turn a tuning peg on a string, or if you lengthen or shorten a tube, all of those overtones move in proportion. You still get a beautiful note at the new frequency that you adjust to. Not so with bells. Bells vibrate as a two-dimensional surface, and the overtones are independent of one another, which means you can tune one overtone, but have the other one still be out of tune. This was a vexing problem. For the first 100 years of the carillon, you could barely play more than one note at a time because they would clash. They just didn't know how to achieve this harmonious tuning. The gentleman who figured it out was named Jacob van Eyck. I bring him up because he was a blind man. He was given an internship, shall we say, as part of a system of social support. He was trained in a craft, which was clock and bell installation. And at some point, he figured out that he could put his head inside a bell and whistle different tones and actually pick up on the resonance with his highly attuned ears. I've tried doing this. It does not work for me. I cannot hear it. But of course, he could. You can actually find writings about him in the works of Rene Descartes. He describes meeting this man and becoming very interested in the acoustics that he had developed. But starting from the 1640s, there were these beautiful harmonious instruments he was able to make. And it's probably thanks to him that this instrument is here and has survived for 400 or 500 years since. So I think on the one hand, you have to imagine that there were many other, brilliant minds at that time who did not get that social support, did not get to make that contribution, but it was also for me, a good story about what's possible when people get the accommodations. And I know that that's a near and dear thing to your hearts. So thank you for that work. So we've got a 500-year-old instrument here. What are the odds that that has any relevance or can be of any use in the 21st century? Completely different time. Everybody has a cell phone in their pocket. Everybody always knows what time it is. We have earbuds. We can hear any piece of music we want at any point. And so I would advance as sort of a value case for the carillon. Many of the issues that we encounter on college campuses, we speak of epidemics of loneliness. We speak of depression and anxiety and mental health concerns. We have students who are in their heads and on their phones and not paying attention to their senses or the areas around them. And we know from fairly reasonable research that there are some things that help for this. Things such as awareness, presence, the arts, green space, beautiful natural settings, shared experiences as communities. I often say that you can listen to any piece on your earbuds at any time, but you can't easily share that experience with other people around you. So for me, coming from a field where I was doing cancer research, it might sound strange if I say that I actually feel like I'm having more of an impact now. But I think the ability to add something beautiful and attention-catching to the hustle and bustle of university life, where we're all potentially living very close to the edge of burnout, and to create events that bring people together. I find that quite fulfilling, and I find that to be a pretty compelling case for carillon in the 21st century. And in fact, the carillon art is on the rise. Every year there are new towers being built. The organization that does performance examinations in North America has more and more applicants for those examinations every year. The standard of playing keeps going up, qualities, and the number of employment opportunities has expanded substantially. That said, it is still a small art. It is still a vulnerable art. I cannot own and maintain a carillon in my living room. We are always reliant on other institutions, and particularly institutions that are not necessarily focused on the arts. And so for me, I think that more important that we are delivering something meaningful and something valuable to the communities we serve. We forget why we're here and who we're here for. So for me, being a carillonist is more than being a musician. It's about being a civil servant. You can be a good civil servant or a bad civil servant, but when you play a large public instrument, you cannot avoid being some sort of civil servant. You're a technician, you're a community engagement person, you're a defender of cultural heritage, and you're an educator involved in outreach and advocacy. And so I consider being here to be a central part of my work and my mission. And I thank you for giving me some moments to tell you about that. I want to leave a lot of time for questions. Maybe we can have a more casual discussion.
I have a question.
Yes.
Grand Valley has 2 Carillon towers.
Yes.
Are there many other universities that have more than one?
Thank you for asking that. There are 3 in North America, dare I say in the Western Hemisphere. So it's actually quite rare what we have. Interestingly, all 3 are in the Midwest. So in many ways, this is a good area for the carillon. Yes.
Do you play remotely? I mean, are you near the bells actually, or?
Yeah, great question. It is a fully mechanical connection between the batons or keys of my keyboard, and I wish I could pull up a picture, but I don't have that handy. And the pedals, it's all just traveling through a wire and pulling directly in a clapper. So you have to be quite close to the bells. If you are not, you've got a lot of play in the wires, and you don't get that fine control to perform in the expressive fashion that a pianist or any other instruments might. There are ways for me to pull out my cell phone and sound a bell from the ground, but there's no dynamic or touch sensitivity to that, so it doesn't quite give us an effect. Yes.
How do you practice that?
What a good question. Carefully. Yeah. So there are specially designed what we'll call practice instruments or practice consoles that instead of activating multi-ton bronze bells, will activate a little xylophone bar for the correct pitch. So I can practice in the privacy of my own home or a studio room on campus. Our practice carillons here, we have 2, one for downtown and one for Allendale. They are both on the last legs of their life, so I'm looking into solutions for that. But yes, in theory, we can practice privately to learn the basic mechanics of the notes. Once it comes to actual performance or expression, you know, going upstairs is different. The bells have different resonance. They last longer. There's weight because you're moving up to 100 pounds of clappers. So it's not quite the same experience, but at least we don't have to torment people with the things. Yes.
Even a rough number would be fine. I'm just curious, how many producers of the carillon bells are in production today?
Yeah, I would say about half a dozen at most. There are many bell founders. Most of them don't have the capacity to tune to the quality and precision that you need to play, you know, notes and chords and all of things and have them sound according together. One is in the Netherlands. There used to be two. They merged. There's one in England, but my understanding is that they're having some trouble these days. They also merged with a prior English one in France. I believe there is one starting up in the US, so that's an exciting development. But there are very few people that I would go to if I were to purchase a carillon. Yes.
So I have a few questions. So how was it played in the early years? In other words, was it like ropes and whatever? And two, how does it compare to like church bells that do play different tunes or songs?
Yeah.
And how did you get started?
Okay.
You shared that.
Three great questions. How is it played in the early days? Our first report doesn't actually, our first primary source doesn't actually specify it. It's somebody from the ground saying some fool from this town is playing melodies on the bells. What an idiot. As far as 1510, we had our first primary source showing the order for a set of bells and a keyboard from which they're played. So we assume that in the early days, it was just ropes tied to clappers and they were pulling those ropes. Maybe they had a stick so they could have one on either end, sort of like a puppet show kind of effect. At some point, they probably attached them to fixed points so that they could handle all of them. And then it was a short leap to keyboard where you're actually pressing a key that pulls on her. And that's pretty much mechanically what it is today. We play it more or less the same as they did 400 years ago. The second question, remind me.
About churches.
Oh yeah, so it's actually potentially not that different, church bells. So there are various ways that you might hear bells out in the world. If you hear them from a church and there's a melody, you may be hearing a smaller set of bells of the same exact type that are activated by electromagnetic hammers. You may be hearing a speaker system that's playing a MIDI file. You may be hearing tubular chimes that are microphone. So it is an acoustic sound, but is amplified. Or you may be hearing a true carillon, which is to say at least 2 octaves of bells that's mechanically played with touch sensitivity from a keyboard. You might also be hearing change ringing, which would be mathematical patterns of swinging bells. You might just hear a single bell tolling. But, you know, the people who manufacture carillon bells would be the same who would manufacture those traditional bells that would be in the church as well. A lot of people assume that this tradition originates from the church and from religious setting. There was probably about 50-50 basis in secular and civic basis. So this was sometimes used by churches, but often used by cloth halls or other trading areas and part of organizing city life. And throughout the history of carillon, there's been this question of, are we playing the high music and the church music, or are we playing music for everyone? The drinking songs that you heard last night in the pubs. And for me, it's all of the above. And it's, you know, if there's not something for everybody there, then what am I doing? It's community instrument.
Then how did you get started?
Oh, how did I get started?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I started in college, and then once I graduated, I didn't really stop. I was living in Washington, D.C., working for a consulting firm there, and I would drive an hour each way to Frederick, Maryland, about an hour north to do my practicing, you know, put together an audition tape, go to national conferences. Eventually I said I either need to quit or I need to put myself closer to an instrument. And that's when I headed over to Belgium for on a fellowship, did my study, came back, ended up on the Renaissance Festival circuit. I just actually got back from Europe a week or two ago. I was playing concerts in Barcelona and Antwerp and Bruges and Copenhagen and lots of other venues over there. So it is an instrument that takes you places. You can't just do it in your living room.
You already institution.
Yes, I started on piano and also French horn, briefly trumpet, and when I got to college, I traded drums for brass. Yes.
Can you describe a little bit how it feels to play the Caroline keyboard compared to like a organ or a piano?
Yeah. So there are a few differences that I might point out. First of all, the keys are much wider apart. So on a piano, most people can hit musical interval of a tenth. I won't go into that. On a carillon, you're lucky in one hand to hit a fifth. Classical technique involves using the sides of the hand, some say fists. I try not to use that with my students because then there's tension. The key fall is a lot greater. So on a piano, you might move the key from there to there. Playing a key here, you move it from there to there. And that just gives you a lot more control. You know, you're banging metal against metal. So there's a huge dynamic range in terms of volume, but there's also techniques to change the timbre somewhat, and having that long key fall just lets you set the trajectory of each clapper the way you need it. You're playing with your feet and your hands, larger movements than you might have on a piano where it's mostly fingers. And it's really fun because you're making music for, you know, blocks and blocks of people to hear. You're very exposed, but also very anonymous. So if you make a mistake, you can have plausible deniability. Yeah, I find it very fun. Still here. Yeah.
Just from a logistics standpoint, if you have to be close to the instrument to play it, and there's two, do they both sound at noon? Are you running back and forth constantly between here and there?
I'm still working on the playing schedule, but for now, I'm planning to play Tuesdays here and Mondays in the Valley campus. And then of course, special events, celebrations, that sort of thing. We'll see what the actual time is. I'm still looking into class change times because there's not much point in me playing when everybody is not outside. But it'll probably be something around noon so that people who are having their lunches outside can enjoy it.
Are you going?
Are you here? Yeah, I know there are some other local volunteer performers. I am so fresh, just arrived here, that I haven't had a chance to reach out to them yet, but I understand there are several. In addition, we hold summer concert series where we have people from all over the world who come and give an evening concert. This past year, unfortunately, we weren't able to get them in GVSU because the position was so new. But we had, touring through Michigan, the top 4 finalists of the most recent Queen Fabiola performance competition. So some of the biggest rising stars came to Michigan to show what they got, and it was pretty amazing. So hopefully more to come this summer. Well, they're not. Right. And I don't know when you conclude, but if you want, I can go up and play some music for when you're headed out. Then you can actually have an experience. That'd be great.
Don't forget your water bottle. Also, just a memento for.
Cheers.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I love this. I like this loop design. I won't spill it on my shirt.
With that, I'm gonna ding this bell so that he can go and do it far more gracefully.